Now, the chair of Labor's Climate Change Authority, Matt Kean, former Liberal Treasurer of New South Wales, has lashed out at nuclear energy advocates, accusing them of being delay mongers who are trying to prevent renewables from succeeding. He labelled the push for nuclear and more gas as, and I quote, an illiberal drive to intervene in the market-led energy transition. And he also went on to say that the delay mongers have latched onto nuclear power despite the overwhelming evidence that it can only drive up energy bills, can only be more expensive, and can only take too long to build. This in a cost of living crisis. It seems to me that people calling for gas to be included in the capacity investment scheme are trying to stop renewables. Ian, very, very interested in your response to Matt Kean's claims there.
Well, this is just sheer stupidity. Mr. Kean should know that when Finland put in its reactors, their latest reactors, the cost of electricity went down, and the retailer and the wholesaler also had lower costs. So we have evidence very recently. We've just had the Page Research Centre do a study on the cost of energy. This was done by Gerard Holland. And he looked at solar and wind, he looked at nuclear, looked at gas, and looked at coal. By far, the most expensive energy in Australia is solar and wind. This is when you look at the total costs, the land use changes, the putting in the new power lines, etc. Nuclear is quite cheap compared with that. Gas is also cheap, as is coal. Coal's the cheapest. And that's because we already have the infrastructure for coal. Now, what Mr. Kean doesn't say is that solar and wind are not reliable, whereas nuclear, gas and coal are reliable. What he doesn't say is that solar and wind have a very short life, less than 20 years, whereas nuclear is at least 60 years for a nuclear power plant. More than 40 years for gas, more than 50 years for coal. What he doesn't say is that our future demands for energy are going to increase enormously. We're already using 10% of energy for data centres. With AI, it's going to be a lot higher. And what he's really saying is that the practical economics of the nuclear lobby groups are starting to frighten people. The practical economics of the gas groups are starting to frighten the wind and solar people. These are the cheapest and most reliable and best forms of energy we can have in a country like Australia. And so we've got all these foreign corporations who are running the solar and running the wind, who are lining up for their subsidies. And the subsidies make the energy renewable. The subsidies just keep getting renewed. And he's getting worried that the whistle's going to get blown on this. And we can see around the world that we can have cheap, reliable energy for very long periods of time from nuclear. So I recommend that viewers look at Gerard Holland's report from the Page Research Centre. He aired these findings at the ARC conference on Tuesday, and these are showing that we are going down the wrong path. We've got far too many vested interests who are whispering in Mr. Kean's ear. He doesn't understand the fundamentals of energy generation, and he doesn't understand the fundamental weaknesses of solar and wind.
And I do love the comment he has here about the illiberal drive to intervene in the market-led energy transition. When
well, what does AMO do?
So much. Exactly. There has been so much market manipulation, the subsidies, to pretend that this is something that's being led by the market. It's purely organic, is just wishful thinking. I've got an early lefty losing it for you. It's from the New Zealand Greens.
Coal.
Don't dig it. Leave it in the ground.
Get with it.
I don't know what to say, but what do you say to the New Zealand Greens, Professor Plimer?
I think they've been taking some of Kamala Harris' scripts and talking from them. I have no idea what they're talking about, but what we do know is that the New Zealand coals on the west coast of the South Island are exceptionally clean, very high calorific value, very low ash, and are prized coals. New Zealand does have energy from other sources, from oil and gas in the Taranaki Basin and some geothermal energy, but the New Zealand coals are some of the best in the world. I have no idea what they're trying to say, except that perhaps they want New Zealand to become even more backward.
I think they would actually enjoy that very much. Professor Ian Plimer, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you.